I always thought the scariest thing wasn't the betrayal itself, but how easily a person could lie while looking you straight in the eye. The April wind scattered sakura petals near our apartment in downtown Portland. I stood by the window with a cup of coffee, watching Elisabeth get ready for work. We'd been married for 3 years and I still caught myself thinking about how lucky I was. After my failed first marriage, which ended 5 years ago, I didn't believe I'd find true love again. But Elisabeth changed everything. My name is Tommy, I'm 38, an architect at a small but prestigious firm. Elisabeth is 6 years younger, works as a manager at a large trading company. Our golden retriever Buster was happily circling around her feet, waiting for his morning dose of attention. "Will you be home late today?" I asked. "Not sure, maybe. We have some corporate thing after work," she replied without looking up from her phone. This was mid-April. A week later, Elisabeth came home with a strange sparkle in her eyes. "Guess what? My colleagues gave me a birthday gift certificate for a sailing yacht trip. For 2. Will you come with me?" I laughed. "You know I can't stand water. After that accident on the lake when I was a kid, better take Carolina or Dorothy from work." "Yeah, you're right," she nodded quickly. "Maybe Carolina will agree." The following Saturday, Elisabeth drove to Astoria, a small town by the ocean an hour from Portland. She returned in the evening glowing, talking about wind, waves, adrenaline. I was happy she enjoyed it. But then something changed. Not her appearance. No new dresses or hairstyles. The atmosphere changed. Elisabeth started staying late at work more often. On weekends she'd drive to the ocean to get some air. Once she said she wanted to learn to operate a sailboat. "It's so romantic, Tommy. Imagine just you in the ocean." I supported her enthusiasm, although somewhere deep inside something pulsed anxiously. The first bell rang in May. We were sitting in the kitchen and Elisabeth was telling me something about a new advertising campaign. And then James, that supplier, suggested. She caught herself mid-sentence. "Who's James?" I asked calmly. Oh, that's a new manager in our department. I told you about him." She hadn't told me. And I definitely remembered all her colleagues. The second time the name James appeared was a week later. The third, 3 days after that. Each time Elisabeth quickly corrected herself, tried to change the subject. But I could no longer shake off the suspicions. One evening when she again went to get some air, I did something I'd never done before, installed a tracking app on her car. Technically it was registered in my name, so accessing the GPS wasn't a problem. The next Saturday, Elisabeth was getting ready to go to the ocean again. I said I was going to Larry's, my old college friend, to watch football. Instead, I got in my car and followed her. The GPS showed she was heading to Astoria. I kept my distance, heart pounding. Part of me still hoped I was paranoid, that this was all nonsense. Elisabeth parked near a small marina. I stopped a block away watching. She got out of the car, fixed her hair, and walked to the dock where several yachts were swaying. Near one of them, an elegant white sailboat, stood a man in a captain's uniform. Tall, tanned, about 35. What happened next shattered my heart into pieces. Elisabeth walked up to him, he wrapped his arm around her waist and kissed her. Not friendly, not accidental. This was a kiss between people in love. They boarded the yacht and cast off. I sat in the car, watching the white spot disappear into the ocean. I don't know how much time passed. Maybe hours. When Elisabeth returned home that evening, I was already sitting on the couch with a glass of whiskey. "How was your walk?" I asked. "Wonderful. The wind was perfect," she beamed. "With Carolina?" "Yes, she." Elisabeth hesitated, catching something in my tone. "Strange," I slowly put down the glass. "Because your car's GPS shows you were in Astoria. And I saw you kissing the yacht captain." The color drained from her face. Her mouth opened but no sound came out. "How long?" I asked quietly. "Tommy, it's not what you think." "How long?" 2 months, she whispered. "After that birthday. James, he's the captain, he—" "I don't want to know the details," I interrupted. "Do you love him?" Elisabeth started crying. No, Tommy, I love you." I don't know what came over me. Adrenaline, novelty, he was so confident, so different. But I realize it's a huge mistake. "Why didn't you stop after the first time?" I tried. But he texted, called, and I was weak. "Tommy, please, give me a chance to fix everything." I looked at her, at the woman I loved, whom I trusted completely. Part of me wanted to forgive, embrace, forget. But another part, which remembered the pain from my first marriage, screamed, "Run." "I need time," I said. "I'll go to Robin's for a few days." Robin, my younger brother, lived in Seattle. The next morning I arrived at his place. Over coffee I told him the whole story. "Dude, that's awful," he shook his head. "But you know what? Check the finances. If she's been cheating for 2 months, maybe she's been spending money." I hadn't thought about that. But when I checked our joint account that evening, I found several suspicious transactions. A hotel in Cannon Beach, twice. An expensive restaurant in Newport. A gift at a jewelry store for $500. I'd never been to Cannon Beach. We hadn't gone to Newport. And I hadn't received any gifts. That's when I understood 2 things. First, Elisabeth wasn't just cheating, she was spending our joint money on this affair. Second, I needed a plan. Returning to Portland, I hired a lawyer. Quietly, without emotion, we started preparing divorce papers. In parallel, I did what my lawyer called a smart move. Transferred all my savings into cryptocurrency on a cold wallet. Legal, transparent, but inaccessible for freezing during the divorce. Meanwhile, Elisabeth was trying to fix everything. She deleted James from her contacts, showed me her phone, cried, begged. I pretended to gradually thaw. In reality, I was preparing documents. One evening, as we sat at dinner, Elisabeth suddenly asked, "Tommy, why aren't you yelling at me? Why aren't you angry?" "I deserve your anger." "I'm tired of being angry," I answered honestly. "I'm just trying to understand if we're worth fighting for." "We are," she grabbed my hand. "I know we are. I made a terrible mistake, but I realized how important you are to me. James is nothing. An empty infatuation. But you're my home." Something in her words sounded true. But it was already too late. 2 weeks later, I supposedly went on a business trip to San Francisco to present a new project. In reality, I met with the lawyer, finalized the documents. When I returned, Elisabeth greeted me with dinner and a beaming smile. "I missed you so much. How did the presentation go?" "Good," I kissed her cheek. "Elisabeth, we need to talk." She paled. "About what?" I pulled out a folder with documents. "I want a divorce." "What?" "But we've been working on our relationship. You said you were willing to give it a chance." I said I was thinking about it, and I've thought. "Elisabeth, I can't live with someone I don't trust. Every time you stay late at work, every time you go to get some air, I'll think about James. That's not living." "No," she grabbed the documents. "I won't sign. Tommy, please give me one more chance. I'm ready for anything, therapy, I'll quit my job, we'll move to another city. That won't solve the problem." "Then what will?" she screamed. "Tell me and I'll do it." I looked into her eyes. "A time machine. So you wouldn't board the yacht the first time." The following weeks were a nightmare. Elisabeth refused to sign the documents, cried, tried to convince me. Her mother, Dorothy, called me begging to reconsider. "Tommy, she's young, she made a mistake. Everyone makes mistakes." "Not everyone lies for 2 months straight, spending family money on a lover," I replied calmly. Eventually, the lawyers worked it out. The divorce took 3 months. The apartment stayed with me, I bought it before marriage. Joint savings were divided, but my cryptocurrency remained mine. It was registered as a personal investment. The hardest part was Buster. We both loved this dog. Eventually, we agreed on joint custody, though it sounded absurd. On the last day, when Elisabeth was taking her things, she suddenly said, "You know what's funniest? James disappeared as soon as he found out about the divorce. Wrote that he wasn't ready for a serious relationship. Turns out he needed exactly a married woman. No obligations, no future. I lost you for a game." "I'm sorry," I said, and it was sincere. "Tommy," she put her hand on mine. "I know I have no right to ask, but can I hope that someday you'll forgive me?" I looked at her for a long time. At the woman who was my world. Who destroyed that world with her own hands. "Maybe," I finally said. "But not today." She nodded, picked up the last box and left. Buster whimpered at the door. 2 months passed after the final divorce. I completely immersed myself in work. Designed a shopping center, then an office building, then a private residence. Colleagues said I'd become different. More focused, but also more distant. One day, Larry invited me to a barbecue. His cousin and her wife were there, several friends. A warm June evening, laughter, music. I felt almost normal for the first time in months. My phone vibrated. "Elisabeth. Tommy, we need to talk. It's important." I didn't respond. She wrote again an hour later. "Please. It's about us." "There is no us anymore," I typed and blocked the number. Larry came over with a beer. "Everything okay?" "Yeah," I smiled. "Everything's okay." And for the first time in a long time, I felt it was true. Another month later, Elisabeth wrote to my email. A long letter in which she said she was seeing a therapist, trying to understand why she did what she did. That she realized, the problem wasn't in me, not in James, but in herself. That she had always been afraid of real intimacy, so she fled into a superficial affair when our relationship became too real, too deep. I'm not asking to come back, she wrote. I understand I destroyed your trust forever. But I want you to know, you were the best thing that ever happened in my life. And I sincerely regret that I couldn't preserve it. I reread the letter 3 times. Then closed it and continued working on a new project. In the fall I met another woman. Carolina, ironically, Elisabeth's colleague from her previous job. We accidentally ran into each other at a bookstore, started talking. She knew about the situation, Elisabeth had once told her. Sorry, it's probably uncomfortable, Carolina said. Honestly? A little, I admitted. But you're not responsible for other people's mistakes. We started dating. Slowly, carefully. I still didn't trust completely, still feared. But Carolina was patient. One evening as we were walking Buster in the park, she asked, Do you still love her? I thought about it. You know what's strange? I love the memory of her. Of that Elisabeth I imagined her to be. But that real Elisabeth who could lie for months? I never knew her. That's a wise answer, Carolina smiled. Don't forget to subscribe to this channel and click like if you enjoy this story. I always read your comments and analyze which stories you like best so that I can create better stories. Thank you. I will continue the story. December brought a surprise. Elisabeth wrote again. Briefly, I'm getting married. I want you to know. Not to James, he's long in the past. To a good person who knows about my mistake and is willing to give me a chance. I want to thank you. For the lesson. For the pain that taught me to value honesty. Be happy, Tommy. I showed the message to Carolina. How do you feel? She asked. Relieved, I answered honestly. Now I know for sure that everything is over. We celebrated New Year's together. At midnight, when the sky bloomed with fireworks, Carolina kissed me and whispered, Happy New Year. And Happy New Life. I hugged her, looking at the festive sky over Portland. Buster barked at the fireworks, spinning happily around our feet. Somewhere in this city, Elisabeth was celebrating with her fiancé. Somewhere James was captaining his yacht, looking for a new adventure. But it no longer had anything to do with me. My life started again. Without lies. Without betrayal. Simply, anew. And this time I was ready to trust. Carefully, consciously, but ready. Because the scariest thing isn't betrayal. The scariest thing is closing yourself off from life because of someone else's mistake. I looked at Carolina, at her sincere smile, and understood, I made the right choice. Back then when I left. And now, when I allowed myself to start again. The months that followed were a revelation in themselves. I had forgotten what it felt like to be with someone who valued transparency, who answered her phone without hesitation, who never made me wonder where she really was. Carolina was different in every way that mattered. We took it slow. Our first real date was at a small Italian restaurant in the Pearl District. She ordered pasta carbonara, I got the osso buco. We talked about architecture and her work in marketing, about books and travel dreams. There were no secrets between us from the start. She knew my story and I knew hers. She'd been through her own heartbreak years ago, understood the scars that betrayal leaves. The thing about trust, she said over tiramisu, is that it's not about blind faith. It's about consistent actions over time. You can't demand it, only earn it. I appreciated her wisdom. She didn't push, didn't ask for more than I could give. When I had a late night at the office and forgot to text, she didn't interrogate me. When she went out with friends, she'd send me a quick photo with a smile. Small gestures, but they meant everything. By February, she'd met Robin and Larry. My brother pulled me aside at dinner. She's good for you, man. You smile again. Like really smile. He was right. I felt lighter, freer. The weight of Elisabeth's betrayal was slowly lifting, replaced by something I'd almost forgotten, hope. Carolina moved in that spring. Not to my apartment, that held too many memories, but we found a new place together. A renovated loft in the Alberta Arts District with exposed brick walls and huge windows. Buster loved the hardwood floors, his nails clicking as he raced around exploring. Fresh start, Carolina said as we unpacked boxes. New space, new chapter. I kissed her forehead. Thank you for being patient with me. Thank you for being worth the patience. Work flourished too. My latest project, a sustainable housing complex, won a regional design award. At the ceremony, Carolina wore a midnight blue dress and held my hand as I accepted the trophy. Looking out at the audience, I realized I'd built something I was proud of, not just the building but my entire life after the wreckage. One afternoon in June, almost 2 years after the divorce, I ran into Elisabeth at a coffee shop downtown. She was with a man I assumed was her husband, medium height, kind face, gentle eyes. She saw me before I could leave. "Tommy," she said softly. "This is Daniel." I shook his hand. "Nice to meet you." "I've heard a lot about you," Daniel said. There was no hostility in his voice, just acknowledgement. Elisabeth looked different. Not older or tired, just settled somehow. Calmer. "How have you been?" she asked. "Good. Really good, actually. I'm with someone wonderful. Carolina." "I'm glad," Elisabeth said, and her eyes showed she meant it. "You deserve happiness." "So do you," I replied. We stood there for a moment, 3 people connected by past pain, choosing kindness in the present. "I should go," I said. "Carolina's waiting." "Of course. Take care, Tommy." "You too." As I walked out, I felt nothing. No anger, no longing, no bitterness. Just quiet acceptance. Elisabeth was part of my history, but she wasn't my future. That belonged to Carolina, to Buster, to the life I was actively building rather than passively accepting. That evening, Carolina and I sat on our balcony watching the sunset paint the city orange and pink. Buster lay at our feet, occasionally thumping his tail against the deck. "I saw Elisabeth today," I said. Carolina looked at me, no fear in her eyes. "How was it?" "Fine. Neutral. Like seeing someone you used to know but don't anymore." "That's healthy," she said. "It means you've moved on." "I have." I took her hand. "Completely." She leaned her head on my shoulder. "I'm proud of you. For surviving, for healing, for choosing to love again." "I'm proud of us," I corrected. "For building something real." The city lights began to flicker on as dusk settled. Somewhere out there, Elisabeth was building her own new life. James was probably charming another tourist on his yacht. My first wife was doing whatever she was doing. All these people who had shaped my journey but weren't part of my destination. I thought about the scared, hurt man I'd been 2 years ago, sitting in his car watching his wife betray him. How broken he felt, how certain he was that trust was impossible. If I could speak to him now, I'd tell him, it gets better. Not immediately, not easily, but it does. The pain fades. The scars remain, but they make you wiser, not weaker. And eventually, you'll meet someone who makes you grateful for those scars, because they led you to her. Carolina shifted beside me. "What are you thinking about?" "About how lucky I am. About how the worst thing that happened to me led to the best thing that could have happened." "That's very philosophical for a Thursday evening," she teased. I laughed. "I'm an architect. We're all secretly philosophers. We just express it in buildings instead of words." "And what does this building express?" She gestured to our loft. "New beginnings. Clean lines. Solid foundations. Room to grow." I like that interpretation. Buster suddenly stood, tail wagging, and barked at a passing dog. Carolina laughed, and the sound filled me with contentment. This was my life now. Simple moments. Honest conversations. A woman who showed up consistently, day after day, building trust through actions rather than promises. My phone buzzed. A text from my business partner about tomorrow's client meeting. I responded quickly and put it away. "Everything okay?" Carolina asked. "Perfect," I said. And meant it. As we headed inside, I took one last look at the city. Portland had witnessed my heartbreak and my healing. It held my past and my present and likely my future too. I'd thought about leaving after the divorce, starting completely fresh somewhere new. But I realized running wasn't the answer. Staying, rebuilding, reclaiming the life I wanted, that was courage. That night, as Carolina slept beside me and Buster snored at the foot of the bed, I felt peace. Real deep peace. The kind that comes not from avoiding pain, but from walking through it and emerging stronger on the other side. Elisabeth had taught me about betrayal. Carolina was teaching me about restoration. And I was teaching myself about resilience. The story didn't end with the divorce. It didn't end with me broken and bitter. It evolved into something better, a testament to the human capacity for healing, for growth, for choosing hope over cynicism. As I drifted off to sleep, my last thought was simple: I survived. More than that, I thrived. And that was the greatest revenge of all, not hurting those who hurt me but building a life so fulfilling that their absence became a blessing rather than a curse. Thank you for watching this video. YouTube may no longer suggest my channel to you, so subscribe to it to receive new interesting stories. You will also help the channel grow and improve the quality of its content. The screen now displays a playlist with other interesting stories that you can listen to. You can also write in the comments what stories you would like to see on the channel.